Floodland, Chapter 3. Zoe ate some foul food. She slept that night in a narrow wooden pew. She had no sheets and had to use a mouldy hassock as a pillow, but she slept long and deep. She dreamed a strange mix of deep dreams. She was in a small boat far out to sea. Her mother and father were there too, and Doobie, and Natasha, who suddenly stood up and rocked the boat from side to side. Zoe screamed at her to stop, but the boat tipped and they all fell into the huge freezing ocean. She woke feeling a pain in her ribs, as if someone was kicking her. Someone was kicking her. "Get up," said Spat. "I want to talk to you." He gave Zoe another prod in the ribs with his boot. "Stop it," yelled Zoe, sliding off the pew. "What do you think? Listen to me. I know you're a spy. I don't know where you're from. You haven't fooled me. Even Doobie thinks you're... Look, I told you, I don't know anything about cats or pigs. You know their names all right, don't you? Only because you told them to me." Spat looked like he meant trouble. He stepped up to Zoe's face. "Don't be smart. You ain't so clever. If you think you can get in his good books, then think again. I'm Doobie's eyes and ears around here, so don't get any big ideas." "Hey, don't worry. I don't want to be anyone's nose wiper." Spat hit her hard in the stomach. Zoe hadn't been ready and went down easily. She crawled away, but Spat advanced. "You little..." Zoe had done her share of looking out for herself in Norwich, but she'd never really been much of a fighter. Spat went to kick her again, but Zoe swung her legs and knocked Spat's standing foot from under him. He fell. This gave Zoe enough time to get up, but by the time she had, Spat was already coming at her again. Surprised, Zoe leapt backwards. "Stop!" she shouted, but Spat was clearly in no mood to stop. He swung a fist and Zoe leant to one side. The blow caught her, but only just. It was just enough to send her to the floor again. Then Spat was on her, legs pinning her arms to the hard floor and his hands tightening around Zoe's throat. She tried to struggle, but she was just too weak from her sea crossing. At the back of her mind was the desire to give up. It was such a struggle these days, anyway. Suddenly, Spat flew backwards off Zoe's chest. Zoe tilted her head back to see Doobie looking at her upside down. Doobie nodded at Zoe and then away, indicating that she should make herself scarce. Zoe hobbled off, feeling the bruises already rising on her neck. As she went, she heard Doobie approach Spat. "I told you to keep your hands off her." "Look, I'm sorry, Doobie, but she's the spy, I'm sure of it." He didn't have time to finish his sentence. Zoe looked back to see Spat being hurled across the floor again. Doobie wasn't large by any means, and he was pretty thin. He clearly knew some hideous ways of fighting. Zoe saw her chance. She hadn't got any food to take, but she wasn't going to hang around. It was time to find her way back to Leica and get away. She crept down the length of the nave, trying not to be seen. Into her mind came her dream. She was convinced she was right about Natasha. Her subconscious was telling her so. Rocking the boat and drowning them, and Doobie laughing at it all, even as he went under. And her parents had just sat there silently and let it happen, while Zoe screamed at Natasha to sit down. They hadn't even tried to help her. Zoe reached the great front gates of the cathedral. She wasn't sure if the gatekeepers would let her pass, but she nodded at them, and they made no move to stop her. They seemed not to care that she was there. She passed them and was in the open-ended porch that led away from the gates. It was dark. Despite the wall of daylight facing her, strange carvings were crumbling away on the pillars on either side of her. They disturbed her slightly, and she hurried on. She was just about to step out of the porch when a voice spoke to her. "Good morning, Zoe." It was William, the old man Doobie had pointed out when she arrived. He was sitting in the darkness of the porch. Zoe was unsure what to do. "How do you know my name?" she asked suspiciously. He laughed. "They're all talking about you," he said. "Who?" Everyone. No one can understand why you're not dead." Zoe seemed to feel the fear coming at her again. "Doobie seems..." "Well, yes, Doobie," said William. There was an uneasy silence for a while. Stupidly, Zoe felt embarrassed. She stood thinking of something to say so she could get away. The old man didn't seem as mad as Doobie had said. She'd have to be careful. So where are you going then, Zoe? Nowhere, she said hurriedly. I was just going for a walk, and anyway, you know it smells it. No, I mean, where are you going? Where did you come from? That sort of thing. Oh, well, you know, I'm happy to be an eel. That's fine if Doobie says so. You know, then she trailed off. But I came from Norwich. Norwich stands trembling on the brink, said William, as if it made sense. Ah, right, said Zoe. Or is that on the blink? I can never remember. Pardon? If you do decide to leave, said William. Zoe froze, trying to think of some lie to cover her intentions, but the old man went on. Then don't try to fly, will you? There was this monk, see, who built a pair of wings. His name was Brother Elmer. This was 1,000 years ago now, I'm talking. He built some wings like a bird. He thought he could fly. Well, he jumped off the tower, see? Stupidly, Zoe asked, what happened? Well, he died, didn't he? Off you go then. What? Doobie was right. The old man was crazy after all. I said, off you go on your walk. Zoe hesitated. Right. Thanks, she said. Bye. He didn't reply. She crept slowly out of the porch. As she went, she heard him start talking to himself. Zoe got to the corner of the porch and then she ran until she had a stitch. It was a cool, misty morning. She thought she knew where she was going, but in running had lost her way. Still, the island was small. It wouldn't take her long to find Leica. All around was the smell of wetness. Zoe was used to that. Even though Norwich was much larger than this place, nowhere had escaped the occasional, especially high floods. At least they had enough high ground to grow some vegetables there, though. There was nothing here, just the shells of old houses standing at the water's edge. But again, Zoe was well used to that. Sometimes she wonders what life had been like before the sea came. Perhaps it hadn't seemed stupid to build so close to the sea, because perhaps the sea had been a lot further away. She didn't know. And she'd never met anyone who'd been alive when the houses were built, though lots of people could remember when there had been much more land. Her parents had grown up in a different world, but a world that was already in trouble. Even then, the sea level was rising. They never liked to talk about it much. Whenever she did manage to get something out of them about the old times, they went quiet. For a while afterwards, Zoe had never known those times, though the really serious flooding only started when she was a little girl. She checked around to see that no one was coming after her, then started to walk around the island. She noted the white posts rising from the sea. They had those in Norwich too, marking the sea level, keeping an eye on its highest tide. She shuddered. She'd been right to leave Norwich. There was limited time left that could survive, same as this place. She'd just have to take a boat and get away. She knew that there was land to the west, lots of it. It was where most people were headed when the sea came, but that was long ago, and now there were no ships left on Norwich, nor anyone who had known how to steer them. The stupid, stubborn few who'd stayed had slowly turned into people like those in the cathedral, scrabbling round for wild food or doing a few hours at the allotments to earn something in return. If you were lucky, you might find an old store of food in tins. The labels were never legible, if they were there at all, but what was inside was usually still good, except Zoe remembered someone she knew who'd eaten from a tin that had gone bad. It was a risk you had to take. She knew she probably didn't have much time. Someone would come looking for her soon, but her luck was in. After only 5 minutes, she suddenly recognised where she was. It was the spot where Doobie, Munchkin and Spat had jumped her. She knew her way to her boat now. She found the place. The boat had gone. Instantly, she knew why the gatekeepers hadn't stopped her. She also knew who had her boat, and she realised too why Molly and Sarah hadn't let them out of her sight the day before. She felt angry, stupid too. The sea was all around her. Her boat was gone. There was nowhere to go. She was trapped.